Live Fit Podcast, episode 83, Food, Packaging, Health Claims, and Hype.
Welcome to the Live Fit Podcast with Glenn Johnson, your resource for all things that contribute to good health. You will hear expert advice and interviews with leading authorities on fitness, food, fat loss, mindset, and the mind-body connection. You will find show notes, articles, and health programs at livefitpodcast.com.
Yes, it is time once again for the Live Fit Podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Johnson. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is episode 83, Food, Packaging, Health Claims, and Hype. In this episode, I'm going to share with you the misleading and hyperbolized food packaging verbiage many marketers use to sell their products. But first, I'd like to ask you a favor. Now, podcasts like this live and die based on you, the listener. So I'd like to ask that if you've not previously left a rating or a review for this show, that you take about 2 minutes to do so on your favorite podcast catcher. Heck, it might not even take that long. If you're unsure how to do it, I have a tutorial on the bottom of every one of my show notes pages at livefitpodcast.com. Or you could go to livefitlean.com/iTunes, and that'll take you directly to my iTunes page. As the weather warms up, many people tend to shift their eating, and smoothies become increasingly popular in the spring and then, of course, in the summer. They're fresh, they're cold, they're healthy, right? Well, that's still kind of the thought, and they can be healthy, but generally, most smoothies are way, way, way too high in sugar. They are just loaded with sugar, and as you know, you've heard me say this before, sugar is really not very good for you. Now, I don't want anybody out there to think that I'm a hypocrite, that I never eat sugar. I do. I love it as much as you do. It tastes good, but I also know that it's really bad for you. I also know that the human body does not need it. We do need carbohydrates, but we do not need sugar. And in fact, my daughter asked me to take her to Voodoo Donuts for her birthday, so I will probably eat a donut. In fact, almost certainly I will eat a donut in a couple of days. But I'm not going to send her to school with a tray full of cupcakes for her and her class. So sugar is a nice little treat, but that's exactly what it should be. And I'm really more against children eating sugar than adults because that sets them up for future issues and habits that are going to be very difficult to break. I grew up eating sugar, and perhaps that's the reason I love it so much. And keep in mind, I'm not eating it very often, but now and then I do really, really want it. Back to smoothies. Now, smoothies can be healthy if you keep the fruit content down. Now, experts say 2 cups of fruit is the most you should have per day, and that should be spread out over the entire day, not all at one sitting. It's also not a great idea to consume your fruit in the form of juice, because unless it's blended, then you're not getting the fiber, and you're missing out on a lot of the nutrition you can get from that fiber, but you're also getting a huge blast of sugar into your bloodstream all at one time. So if you're going to have a smoothie, keep the fruit content down to, let's say, how about 1 cup? Do not sweeten it with anything else. I know a lot of people think that agave is the quote-unquote healthy sweetener, but it's actually probably the worst one out there. It has the highest level of fructose, and fructose metabolizes in the liver. If you get enough of that, if you get large doses at one time over a period of time, such as sodas with high fructose corn syrup, such as big glasses of orange juice, that causes fatty liver disease, which is very similar to cirrhosis of the liver. So let's keep the added sugar down, if at all. How about this? You just don't eat added sugar. Make that your rule. But in your smoothie, it's not a bad idea to put in some protein. You can get that protein from milk, or you can get it from a protein powder. Now, if you get it from milk, I strongly recommend, and this is not just for smoothies, but all the time, make sure it's not laden with hormones, because according to Harvard University, milk accounts for 60 to 80% of dietary estrogen, and this is linked with cancer. If you're adding protein powder, I do not recommend you use soy for the exact same reason, because it bumps up your estrogen levels. Nut butters are great. They add protein, they add fat that can make you feel more satiated and for a longer period of time. Plus, there's also some nutrients in there, and it'll slow down the absorption of sugar, so you're not going to get that big sugar spike, and you're not going to get as much sugar into your liver at one time as you would without it. But the calories do add up really, really quick, so keep that in mind when you add it. A tablespoon of nut butter is a pretty good amount. Maybe a little bit more depending on how big you are and how many calories you need, but I would think a tablespoon would be pretty decent. All right, I think it's time to get to the heart of the matter and discuss health claims and hyperbole on food packages. For many years, I've been sharing with my clients and my classes information about food labels. But it occurred to me that I haven't with you, and I'm sure there's many of you out there who would really benefit from hearing what there is to know about what is written on your food packages. Before I go on, let me ask you a couple of questions. How do you choose the packaged foods that you buy? Now, when I say packaged, I don't just mean the lean cuisine frozen dinners, and I certainly don't mean the apples you stick in a bag or a box when you buy them. I mean things like cereal and bread and yogurt and soup and pretty much anything in the middle of the store and even the outside of the store. Why do you choose the particular brands and types of foods that you do? Is it habit? Is it the brand that you've always used? Is it one that you've tried many others and you like that one best? Is it something about what's written on the label, either the front of the label or maybe the nutrients or the ingredients of the package? Some food labels are designed to be pretty and attractive. Others are just very simple and plain. Picture Campbell's tomato soup. It's very simple, very plain, and that's all it says on the front of the label. Some of them have low sodium written on it, but most are just very plain, and there really aren't any health claims. But a lot of foods have health claims, and some foods are kind of quote-unquote known to be health foods, like yogurt, for example. It's really, really hard to find a genuinely healthy yogurt because all these manufacturers are trying to grab your attention and get you to buy their yogurt. So they make the flashy, colorful labels. They'll put little cutesy names on them. They'll say 0 fat, as if that's something that's appealing. Don't they know that the low-fat experiment is over and it failed? Some do, but looks like most don't. And in fact, I'm still very irritated every time I go to the grocery store and look in the yogurt aisle because not very long ago, Greek yogurt was hard to get, and you could only get it plain and whole fat, whole milk versions of it. Well, then it caught on that it's a healthy food to eat because it's high in protein, it's low in sugar, it tastes good, and then it got bastardized. All these other makers come out and they start making Greek yogurt, but instead of just making it the way it should be made and being healthy, they changed it, and they add flavors, and they add sugar, and they take out fat. Maybe they add artificial sweetener instead of adding sugar. So is that better? No, it's not. The point is, food packaging, verbiage, and labels are very confusing, and there's very little regulation on what they can say. And I'm going to go over that with you today so you can understand what it is you're looking at and what you're reading. Most people I speak with never read the ingredients or the nutritional fact information on the back or the sides of the packages. They read the front label, and either they're purchasing just out of habit, but if it's something new, if it's not something they have a habit of buying, they might look for the one that's the lowest price or one that has some health claims that are enticing to them. From an early age, I remember reading food labels about the time I started learning to read. because I go shopping with my mom and she would be reading labels and I would ask her what she's looking at and why she's spending 5 minutes reading a package. And she explained to me what things were on the food labels, on the ingredient list, what these things meant. And yogurt is very bad for kind of misleading, but bread and cereal is really, really difficult to understand what you're really getting. Bread, for example, the front of the package might say whole wheat. And so somebody might just grab it. Yay, it's brown and it says whole wheat. I'm good, right? But if you look at the ingredients, it might start off with saying unbleached, enriched wheat flour. Well, that's not whole wheat. That is stripped off wheat. That's white flour. They've added some vitamins after the ones they've taken out of it, and they didn't bleach it, so it's a little darker color, so it's not going to be that pure white. Okay, that's better than the bleached, but it's not whole wheat. And bread companies can get away with calling a bread whole wheat if they throw in a dash of whole wheat. Now, you might find that whole wheat listed way, 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 way down, but they're not lying because it does have whole wheat in it. Another misconception is that multigrain bread is whole grain. And though it can be, it usually isn't. And in fact, I've never found one that is. So when you're picking out bread, if it is whole wheat that you want, read the ingredients, not the front of the package. Just flip the thing around, read the ingredients, and see what the first ingredient is. Is it 100% whole wheat? Does it say whole wheat in any way? If it says enriched, then it's not whole wheat because they've stripped the nutrients off of it. If it says unbleached, once again, why would they even mention that unless it's already white flour? So bread is pretty difficult. You can't trust the front of the label. You need to read the ingredients. That is the biggest one, I would say. That one and yogurt. Cereal also, they tend to pump it up and make it look like it's more important than it really is. Let's see. Box of that colorful, fruity flavored cereal that kids like. Oh, it has 8 vitamins and minerals. Well, so does a bowl of oatmeal that has not been adulterated. So I would really recommend reading the ingredients of all the foods that you eat, and some things are going to be much more simple than others. It might take a little bit longer, but once you learn what's what and what's in what foods, then you can go ahead and just buy that same thing over and over again. And chances are they're not going to change the ingredients, but it's not a bad idea to look every now and then because ingredients do change. Some of the terms that you might see on packages that are enticing would be fresh, best, value, good source of, natural, may improve, blankety blank. A lot of these terms have no legal definition or meaning at all, and they can be used to sway your opinion. It doesn't make them bad foods or bad people for wanting to sell their products to you, but you got to read past the marketing. I want you to be an educated consumer. I want you to put in your body what you know should go into your body. I want you to know what you're putting into your body, for that matter. Even if you do read nutrition labels on the backs of the packages and understanding what it means, it might take a little while to really know what certain words are. A lot of the words you might see are vitamins. Tocopherol, that's vitamin E. For example, I was at the grocery store with my daughter the other day, and she said, "Look, Dad, this only has 15 calories per serving." And I was reading some other label, so I didn't really look at it, but I asked her to look at the nutrition label, and she said it only had 4 grams of sugar. And I said, "Okay, how big is the serving size?" And she said, "A teaspoon." And I said, "That's about 4 grams. And without looking, I said, "It sounds like it's pretty close to 100% sugar." And so then I looked at the package she was holding in her hand, and it was a box of sugar. So at first, that sounds pretty appealing. This serving only has 4 grams of sugar. It's only 15 calories, but considering it's 100% sugar, there's really no health benefit. But they're giving you this information as if, oh, hey, sugar's not that bad. And if all you have is 1 teaspoon of sugar in your tea or in your coffee, in your mouth, Yeah, no big deal. It's not bad for your liver, your body, your bloodstream. That's fine. But the real problem is when people don't stop at 1 teaspoon. The average American consumes 13 to 26 teaspoons of sugar a day. And that's an adult, mind you. Kids and teenagers, especially teenagers, consume 2 to 3 times that. Marketing phrases on the front of packages are not only your pitfall in choosing what to buy, but the nutrition facts labels can also be a little bit misleading. So it's really important to know what the numbers mean. And take the example I just gave you of the sugar. It says 4 grams of sugar per serving, and the serving size was 4 grams. And that makes 4 calories per gram, so we're looking at about 16 calories. So a teaspoon's a little bit less than 4 grams. That's why they said it's 15 calories. But it's important to understand that, because if you look at the nutrition information on a soda, it might say 20 grams of sugar. Oh, great. You're holding up this bottle. This only has 20 grams of sugar. Well, no, because there's probably 2.5 to 3 servings in that one bottle. You really need to look at the serving size. And are you going to have just that one serving? There's no standard for serving sizes. The maker can make it any size that they want. They can also round it out. There's 9 calories per gram of fat. Yet most labels state 1 gram of fat as having 10 calories. Why would they do that? Why would they round it up? Now, I don't know this, but my idea is that they do that to justify rounding down when the number gets higher. For example, if there was 3 grams of fat, that would equal 27 calories. But food makers will round that down to 25. Okay, so let's say there's twice as many grams of fat, and then they're rounding down. Or 3 times as much fat, and then they're rounding down. That can make a big difference over the course of a day or a week. And maybe 20, 30, 40 calories is really not a big deal. Not even maybe. It's not a big deal. But why be false? Does it cost them more to print it correctly? I would think, if anything, printing a 9 would cost a fraction less than printing a 10. There's less ink involved. And if that's not the reason, what is it? Just something to think about. The most common problem with food labeling I see are the implied claims manufacturers put on their packages that don't have any actual scientific evidence or proof. These claims generally describe a relationship between a substance that is in their product and a disease or a health-related concern, such as cancer or hypertension. The following are legal claims according to the FDA. There are 4 basic categories of these claims. They are relative claims, nutrient content, implied claims, health claims, and structure function claims. Now, relative claims are a comparison of one food to a reference food. This type of claim uses the following terms: light, reduced, added, extra, plus, fortified, enriched, more, less, or fewer. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details of every one of these claims and all the definitions and what the signifiers are for light and reduced, because there are definite FDA requirements in order to say that. But I will have it on my show notes page at livefitpodcast.com, episode 83. Nutrient content claims. These are also a type of relative claim that compares one food with a reference food. These claims will use words like high, rich in, excellent source of, good source, contains, provides, more, fortified, enriched, added, extra, plus, lean, extra lean, high potency, modified, and there's a variety of fiber claims and antioxidant statements. Implied claims. As the name implies, these are claims that don't actually say what they do, but they want you to fill in the blanks. They may suggest that because this food contains or doesn't contain something, or it has a high or a low level of some ingredient, that it's better for you. Examples of this are contains 3 grams of fat. Okay. So you should ask yourself, so? Might say healthy. What does that actually mean? Whole wheat. Well, I talked about bread already, so you know that that in itself doesn't mean anything unless it says 100%. And also the term wheat bread. Well, almost all bread is made from wheat. So by calling something wheat bread just really doesn't mean much. It's like saying wet water. The FDA defines health claims as claims about a food or ingredient that suggests that the nutrient or ingredient are absent or present in a certain amount, or claims about a food that suggests a food may be useful in maintaining healthy dietary practices, or that it claims that a food contains or is made with an ingredient that is known to contain a particular nutrient. Once again, I'm going to suggest you go to the show notes page to read these in greater detail, because I know it's kind of hard to digest all this while listening, especially if you're preoccupied with something else like driving a car or working out. Equivalency claims. Now, these are claims stating such: contains as much blank nutrient as a blank food. So you might have a food that says contains as much calcium as yogurt. That would be an equivalency claim. Equivalency claims may be made if both reference food and labeled food are a good source of a nutrient on a per serving basis. So in other words, here's another example for you. Contains as much vitamin C as an 8-ounce glass of orange juice. Let's talk about health claims. These are claims that link a food substance or dietary ingredient to reduced risk or of a disease or health-related condition. Health claims can have legal limits, though. These claims require pre-market approval from the FDA, and there must be scientific evidence supporting this claim. Yay, I love health claims, as long as they're legit. So once again, I am going to reference you to my show notes page because there's a lot of particulars on this one. Saturated fat, individual food would be low in saturated fat, which means it would have less than 2 grams of saturated fat per 100 grams of serving. So a little bit cumbersome to state all of this on an audio podcast, but your eyes will do the trick if you want more details. Let's talk about conception, shall we? Now, interestingly enough, the term organic does not have a legal definition with the FDA. The USDA has many different definitions that are a little bit too convoluted to list here. But I found another example of a definition that's pretty clear and simple, and it goes as follows. Simply stated, organic produce and other ingredients are grown without the use of pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, sewage sludge, genetically modified organisms, or ionic radiation. Animals that produce meat, poultry, eggs, and dairy products do not take antibiotics or growth hormones. Legal definitions aside, many people presume that an organic product is healthier for them just because it says organic. Now, I witnessed this with a client who showed me a jar of peanut butter that they purchased. I had had a nutrition discussion with her the week before that and kind of went through her cupboards and showed her what I thought was healthy and what was not. She took that to heart. She went shopping and she came back with a jar of organic peanut butter. I looked at the front label and immediately turned it around to the back because the front doesn't mean anything. So we read the ingredients together, and you know what it had? Now, first of all, what ingredients should be in peanut butter? Peanuts. maybe peanuts and salt. But there really doesn't need, or should there be, any more than those 1 or 2 ingredients. This one had partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. Well, they did this to keep it from settling. I know some people don't like the separation of the oil from the peanuts in their peanut butter. Now, I've been eating all natural peanut butter my entire life. And what I do is when I buy it, I take off the lid, I microwave it for a little bit to warm it up. Then I stir it really good. I scrape down to the bottom, stir up and down, get it around and round and round, put the lid on, set it in the cupboard upside down. When I use it, I obviously turn it right side up. I take the peanut butter I want, put the lid back on, make sure the seal is clean because sometimes the peanut butter on the lid will kind of smear into the seal. So I'll usually take the knife and take the peanut butter off of the lid. But then I'll put the lid back on and put it back in the cupboard upside down. And that stirs itself. So every time you use it, you turn it right side up. The peanut butter kind of stirs as it settles down again. You put it upside down and it stirs as it settles down towards gravity once again. And it's self-stirring in that respect, and you never have to stir it again. You just got to make sure that the lid is on tight. Not extra tight, just tight, and that the seal is clean. But some people don't either know that or they keep it in the fridge, but then they have cold peanut butter, which is really hard to smear onto bread. It's fine if you're putting it on celery, but it clumps up. It doesn't smear very well, so I don't like putting it in the fridge. So some people will get this peanut butter that doesn't settle, but unfortunately to do that, they have to put trans fats in there. This partially hydrogenated vegetable oil is a cheaper version of the oil that's in there naturally. And so what they do is the makers take the peanut oil out. They separate it on purpose. They take the peanut oil out and they sell that. Now, peanut oil is pretty expensive. It's not the most expensive oil out there, but it's pretty expensive. And organic peanut oil is even more. So they are pretty much doubling their money because now they're selling organic peanut oil and they're selling you organic peanut butter that doesn't have any peanut oil in it, or not as much anyways. And they're putting an organic, partially hydrogenated, trans fat laden oil into this peanut butter, and often sugar also. So making it organic doesn't really help matters, does it? Because you're getting maybe some sugar and you're getting those trans fats. And it doesn't matter if those trans fats are organic or not. It's no bueno. So let's talk about structure function claims. These claims focus on a specific substance that helps to maintain normal healthy structures or functions, without stating the nutrient's role in the prevention of any disease, that is. So these claims focus on specific substances that helps or maintains normal healthy structures or functions. They have to do this without stating the nutrient's role in the prevention of any disease. So basically, they suggest that the product can make you healthier without actually offering any proof or anything that would make it sound like they have proof. Here's an example. Calcium builds strong bones. So they can put that on milk or, spinach, but they don't. Isn't it funny that the healthiest foods don't have these health claims? So stating that calcium builds strong bones doesn't say that the food you're about to buy will build strong bones. It's implied. You could put calcium builds strong bones on a pack of gum. That does not say there's calcium in the gum. It's just a statement. You could also say water is wet. Another one I've seen a lot is supports immunity, builds strong health. These are some of the examples that the marketing geniuses at the food companies put on their labels to help encourage you to buy their particular product. And once again, I don't want to sound disparaging towards any of these foods themselves. I just want you to be a smart consumer and not be sucked into something that might be negligible, might not really matter. Just because a label on orange juice says calcium builds strong bones doesn't mean that orange juice helps build strong bones. The interesting thing about the structure function claims is that it falls under the umbrella of freedom of speech. The claims are not approved by the FDA, and they can sometimes be pretty misleading. Once again, calcium builds strong bones could be placed on anything you eat or drink, and that does not mean that that product even has calcium. It's implied, and it probably does, but it does not mean that. Another misleading word is natural. There is no legal definition for the word natural. A perfect example of this is several years ago, I was drinking a can of Hansen's natural soda when I was reading the ingredient list. Now, normally I read the ingredients before I consume something, but in this case, I thought it was pretty clear. It was on the front of the package. Well, this was before I was as knowledgeable as I am now. So I'm reading the ingredient list, and you know what it was sweetened with? High fructose corn syrup. So I wondered, how exactly do the people at Hansen's Natural Soda consider HFCS to be natural? So I wrote them a letter to ask, and they responded in perfect public relations fashion and said that there is no legal definition for the word natural, and they can use it any way they want. And in this case, it's part of their name. They eventually did change to using cane sugar instead of HFCS, but if you know how cane sugar is made, it's really not that close to natural either. Food manufacturers know the law and print what they can legally get away with that will make their product look as good as possible and as enticing to consumers. This is very hard for you and for me to figure out what is legitimate and what is simply marketing hype. These health claims have very little scrutiny. Claims can be misleading, they can be overstated, or irrelevant without even breaking the law. They can also omit stuff. For example, you know how I feel about sugar, but there is no warning label on any foods with sugar in it or drinks. Sugar is not good for a person's health. It simply is not. It may not be toxic in small doses, but it's still not good for a person's health. And you don't see this colorful, fruity cereal in the cereal aisle right next to where it says fortified with 8 vitamins and minerals. Oh, and it also has sugar, which is not good for you. No. Dietary supplements have to state that their product is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure anything. But packaged foods don't have to, because once again, it falls under the umbrella of freedom of speech. No system is perfect. We can't increase regulation without increasing a slew of other problems and costs. There's currently a bill called the Food Labeling Modernization Act of 2015. This bill addresses food labeling reform to include misleading health claims. Yay! Front of package lingo. Yay! And updating nutrition facts label. Yes! The FDA is also requesting public opinion to come up with a definition for the word natural. Yay! This is great news. Basically, they want a definition that can be used going forward because, as I mentioned, it doesn't have a meaning at all. But most people think natural has a meaning. I have a link for that bill so you can track that bill and read more details on it. Once again, in my show notes. All right, so what all this comes down to is education. Be a smart consumer. Be knowledgeable on what these words and phrases actually mean. Or, better yet, don't read the front of the package. Go straight to the ingredients list and use your intelligence to know whether it's something you want to put in your body or not. Good luck.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Live Fit Podcast. Please subscribe and share with someone you care about. Read show notes, articles, resources, and learn more about our weight management programs at livefitpodcast.com. Once again, thanks for listening, and always remember to live fit.